Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today at the AWS Summit. My name is Amber Gregorio, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Cloud Health by VMware. And today we're going to talk about how to do FinOps with Cloud Health. I'll start off today by sharing a little bit about who Cloud Health is, and then we'll dive into our model for cloud management maturity and talk about how FinOps fits into this broader model. We're going to spend most of our time today looking at 4 concrete steps that you can take to optimize your AWS environment for cost and performance efficiency. In other words, we're going to show you how to do FinOps, if you will, with Cloud Health. And then we'll wrap it up by sharing some of the successes that our customers have had with AWS cost management using Cloud Health. Just to give you a little bit of background, Cloud Health started out as an AWS-only cost management tool, and over the years, it's evolved into a multi-cloud solution for managing not just your cloud costs, but also your cloud operations and your security and compliance posture. And VMware was a Cloud Health customer for several years before they decided that Cloud Health is the best tool on the market for this particular use case, and they ultimately decided to buy Cloud Health in 2018. And since then, they've been positioning Cloud Health as the leading solution across all of VMware's entire cloud management portfolio. And Cloud Health has a very big global customer base made up of over 10,000 companies of all shapes and sizes and industries. And after working with thousands of different companies, we've learned that success in the cloud requires equal attention to these 3 focus areas: financial management, operations, and security and compliance. In the area of financial management, we currently have over $13 billion in multi-cloud spend in the platform under management, and we're helping our customers report on and charge back the spending that they're incurring by cost center or other relevant business grouping. We're also helping them drive accountability against different budgets for different teams and save money in the cloud through resource optimization. In the area of cloud operations, our customers have enabled over 118,000 policies in their environments to help automate daily cloud operations, speed up their decision-making, and keep their environment optimized on a continuous basis. And in the realm of security and compliance, we've alerted our users to almost 30 million security violations to date, which is enabling them to fix these security misconfigurations in their environment before they lead to a security breach. And we're also prioritizing risk for our customers so that they can tackle their biggest and most risky challenges first. And we're scaling security and compliance best practices more efficiently across some of the largest cloud environments out there in the world. Now, on average, we help our customers achieve about 25% cost savings by giving them visibility into their virtual machines and their containerized environments, and providing recommendations for optimization and giving them tools to govern the environment with automation. But Cloud Health has had such success because we do more than just give you the tool or the software that you need to operate in the public cloud. We also teach our customers a framework that will drive the sort of organizational transformation that will be necessary to be successful in the cloud. So let's talk a little bit about that framework and how FinOps fits into it, because FinOps is a relatively new term, but the concept is not. Okay, we call this framework the Cloud Health Maturity Model. And as you can see, the model maps a path to maturity in each of these 3 critical focus areas: financial management, operations, and security and compliance. And your business sits somewhere along this maturity curve, and our job is to help you move up and to the right, maturing your cloud management practices through these 4 phases. So typically when a customer comes to us, they're just trying to address challenges around gaining visibility into their environment. So they're working now in a decentralized cloud environment, and they don't have visibility into what's happening. So they'll often struggle with predicting and forecasting cost and maintaining optimized and secure infrastructure. The next step in cloud management maturity is optimization. And optimization is the process of finding opportunities to be more efficient, whether that's cost savings or time savings due to operational improvements or tightening security parameters. And many businesses at this phase are just starting to figure things out, like what resource sizes are appropriate for production applications. And then and they're learning when they can safely turn off some of these resources to save them money. And then as you move up the curve, you come to governance and automation. So once good practices are established and you understand what's appropriate for your environment, you can start to operationalize cloud management and cloud governance with automation. So many organizations tell us that as their cloud usage grows, they can't keep up with this volume and complexity of all of the cost and usage and security requirements. So automation really helps solve this issue as your business scales. And the final phase of cloud maturity is business integration. So at this phase, you've integrated your cloud processes and KPIs into your core business processes. So your cloud teams are fully aligned with the business goals. So at this point, every cloud stakeholder from engineering all the way through your C-suite will have access to the information that they need to make decisions that align with business goals. Okay, so today we're only going to focus on a part of this model. If we remove the security and compliance component, then we are left with financial management and operations. And FinOps is the practice of optimizing your cloud operations to generate the most revenue. So financial management plus operations equals FinOps. Okay, now cutting costs always sounds like a great idea for a business executive until they find out that we've cut so much that now we can't maintain the application performance or efficiency that we need to stay competitive. And we can't roll out updates as quickly or as easily as we need to. And it's actually costing us more money than we've saved. So I just love this quote from the executive director at the FinOps Foundation, J.R. Storman. And he reminds us that FinOps is really about making money, not saving money, right? Ultimately, the goal is to drive more revenue for the business. So FinOps is really about getting cost information to developers and other cloud stakeholders so that everyone is making decisions that will drive more revenue. Sometimes that means spending more money on a larger EC2 instance, for example, because that's what you need to support your application. So yes, cutting costs is important, but it can never be at the expense of your speed of development. So the question is, how do we get that information to the right stakeholders so that they can make good decisions? In other words, how do we do FinOps? Well, it all starts with gaining visibility into your cloud environment. So the first thing that we see happen when businesses don't have visibility is they get a bill that has some charges on it that they weren't expecting, and you don't know which team or which application or resource incurred this charge. So you have no way to drive accountability or change the behavior at the user or team level. Often some of the questions that businesses are asking themselves at this early visibility stage are what resources are being used and who's using them, what applications are using them. If you have workloads in a data center, you might be asking which ones should be lifted and shifted to the cloud and which should be rebuilt from scratch in the cloud. And in order to answer these questions, you need to get this visibility. So you need to develop a tagging structure for all of your cloud assets and apply it consistently across your entire cloud environment. In Cloud Health, we use something called perspectives to create consistent tags across different environments. And with these tags in place, the business can begin to see which teams and applications are using which resources. Some of the most common tags or perspectives that we see our customers using in Cloud Health are line of business, department, cost center, project, environment, and we even see costs broken right down to the individual owner so we can understand which developer is driving the most cost. But what's really powerful here is that when you know which groups are incurring those costs, you can start to charge back or perhaps just show back those costs to that team or that business group, or even perhaps that individual. And you can drive financial accountability within your development team. Okay, so once you've got your perspective groups set up in Cloud Health, you can now start to analyze all the activity in your environment. So here we're looking at an example of a Cloud Health cost history report. And this particular report shows the company's containerized costs broken down by cluster group. And we can see that over the last year, cluster group 1, which is represented by that really dark blue bar, it dropped significantly in cost to almost nothing in this late June and early July period. So we can drill down further and find the exact date and ask questions to get the important business context for this change so we understand why this happened. So by organizing all of our resources into perspective groups, this company was now able to gain visibility into their containerized cloud costs. And this is just one way that they can look at their containerized data. They can also look at it through the lens of any other perspective group that they set up, like cost center or line of business, team, etc. So after you gain visibility into all of your assets, you can start to figure out how to optimize your cloud spending. And at Cloud Health, we recommend this 4-step approach. We know from working with thousands of customers that the biggest drivers of unnecessary cloud spend are resources that are running but not being used by any workload, so they're incurring unnecessary charges. And we call these zombie assets, and we want you to find those and terminate them in your environment. Over-provisioned infrastructure, or resources that are bigger than what you really need for your workload, can also be incurring some unnecessary costs. You likely have over-provisioned cloud resources that leave some of your virtual machines or your storage unused. Or perhaps you're incurring higher data transfer costs than needed. So these are resources that you'll want to right-size. But once you've cleaned up all the resources in your environment, the next step is to optimize any existing convertible reservations and then purchase new AWS reserved instances and savings plans to save money on your future usage. So I'm going to deep dive here and show you one example of how Cloud Health can help with each of these 4 optimizations. But before we dive into that, I wanted to share one pro tip that can save you money today. Even if you don't have a cloud cost management tool or purchase Cloud Health, go into your environment and take a look at your EC2 instance usage and identify any EC2 instances that have a low usage. So what defines low is perhaps an average CPU of less than 5% and a max CPU of less than 20%. Over a significant period of time, maybe a couple of weeks or a month. So this is the kind of resource that is probably a zombie asset, and it's ideal for either optimization or termination. Okay, so step 1 in optimization. The first thing you want to do is optimize or clean up the existing resources that you have in the environment. So shutting off those resources that you don't need or that don't comply with your policies. This type of zombie infrastructure can be a major culprit in making your bills higher than expected. One of our customers told us that every month, the Cloud Health usage report reveals at least one virtual machine that they can terminate because it's not being used. So it saves them money right away when they shut that off. We also have a health check report, which is what you're seeing here on the screen. And this report summarizes a whole bunch of possible optimizations in your environment. So in this example, you can see that Cloud Health has identified over $1,300 that can be saved this month by terminating unused EBS volumes. So the user can easily click on that item and see a full list of unused volumes and then take action to either delete the volume, take a snapshot of it, or run any Lambda function to automate cleanup. And in addition to unattached storage volumes, some other common zombie culprits that are often found in cloud environments are unused virtual machines, disassociated IP addresses, and snapshots that might be too old to be useful to your business. All right, so after you've cleaned up the zombies that you don't need in your cloud environment, the next thing you want to do is right-size the resources that you actually do need. So right-sizing simply means choosing a smaller or cheaper resource that still covers all of your workload needs. It's worth noting that right-sizing can also mean the opposite. It can mean changing to a larger resource if your applications are running not as well as they should be. So Cloud Health looks at your usage parameters like CPU, memory, disk, and network requirements, and it determines if the resource capacity is appropriate for your performance needs. And this looks at your last 13 months of usage to make this determination. So the tool will recommend a cheaper resource that will still cover all of your performance needs, or if your instance is not meeting performance needs, it will recommend a bigger one. And it's very easy in Cloud Health to select the recommendation that you wish to take and then migrate your EC2 and EBS resources to those new recommended types. And these recommendations are also fully customizable. So you can adjust the thresholds for CPU, memory, etc. that would trigger a recommendation to right size. So this is really useful if you anticipate future changes in your resource needs. Okay, so moving on to step 3 in optimization. Cleaning up your existing environment is just the first part of cost optimization. So that's what we covered with deleting zombie infrastructure and right sizing. So now we're going to talk about all the cost savings that can be had by leveraging commitments to AWS. And if you've already made some of these commitments, then you should first sort of squeeze as much juice out of those lemons as you can. And reserved instance commitments can be made for up to 3 years in advance. And the chances are that some of your usage needs will change in that time. But the good news is that if you bought EC2 convertible RIs, you can exchange them for different types of EC2 RIs that apply to your current compute needs. So Cloud Health pulls together all of these possible exchanges that will save you money, and it enables you to make those exchanges right from the Cloud Health platform. And then finally, you can make new commitments to optimize your future spending and costs. And AWS offers some really attractive reserved instances and savings plans. And Cloud Health will give you recommendations for purchasing EC2 and RDS, RIs, and for purchasing compute savings plans. And you can make those purchases right from the Cloud Health platform. So here you're looking at our compute savings plan recommendation engine. Compute savings plans are the most flexible discount type that's offered by AWS, and Cloud Health will give you a side-by-side comparison of all 6 of your compute savings plans options. So you can have 1-year or 3-year commitments with full upfront payment, partial upfront payment, or no upfront payment. So that's 6 different options. And what's really cool about our tool is you can set specific KPIs to indicate how much money you want to save, how much you're willing to commit to spending per hour, or what percentage of your entire usage that you want to be covered by savings plans. So you set those things in the tool, and then we spit out the details of what each option will save you, what it will cost up front, what your effective discount rate will be, and your total coverage rate with that selection. So you can then drill down further into each of these recommendations. So this is a really robust feature that helps you make sure that you're meeting your goals for cloud financial management. Now we're going to turn from optimization to the third phase in cloud financial management maturity, which is governance and automation. So as you worked through some initial cloud optimizations, you would start to understand things about your cloud environment, like which size EC2 instance is appropriate for our customer-facing applications, or you might learn that snapshot backups that are over 6 months old are no longer valuable to your business. In other words, you're going to be able to identify parameters that make sense for your business. And once you do that, you can make those parameters a standard company policy. And building those policies is the critical first step in cloud governance. So at first, you might just want to alert people when they're outside of policy. It can be hard to drive this sort of change. So for example, at first, you could trigger an alert to a developer who provisions a compute service that's larger than the company policy says is necessary for this type of application. But as your organization grows, you'll quickly find that you'll want to enforce some of these policies with automation. Personally following up with every individual who violates a policy will become impossible when your organization reaches a certain size. So automating will become the key to successfully adhering to those policies at scale. So instead of just alerting a developer that he or she is over provisioning, you can actually automate this process and delete it, spin up a different smaller instance, and trigger an alert telling the developer that this change has already been made on their behalf. Now, policies in Cloud Health can be created about anything that you're tracking in your cloud environment, like budget, system access, security, resource provisioning, etc. Any data that's in the tool can be used to create a policy. So the key is to identify those that you want to automate, and a cloud management tool can go a long way to helping you do that. So this is a screenshot of one policy that was set up in the Cloud Health account. It's just a very basic policy triggering an email to be sent that's notifying the appropriate person every time the total cloud bill increases by more than 20% in 1 week. So it's just a very simple alert that can be set up early on to give you a heads up when things might be trending in a potentially problematic direction. Here you're seeing some examples of things that we see our customers making policies for. They'll often set to receive an alert when costs are projected to increase by a certain percentage, or when the system forecasts that you will exceed your budget that month. Another helpful policy that we often see triggered via email or Slack is a reminder of when some of your savings plans or reserved instances are going to expire so that you can look into purchasing new ones. And our customers will often leverage automated actions to terminate unattached storage volumes, disassociated IP addresses, and old snapshots. And this really helps the business stay on top of these optimizations in a continuous manner. All right, so that all sounds really awesome, right? With Cloud Health, you get visibility into your cloud and containerized resources. You get recommendations for optimization and tools for governance and automation. But is this really working in the real world? What are our customers saying? We're going to take a look at one small, one medium, and one large business and see what they've been able to achieve with Cloud Health. So Click Software was founded in Israel almost 15 years ago, and they've got about 800 employees, so it's a relatively small business. But they were really successful right out of the gate, and they were actually purchased by Salesforce in 2019. This company builds mobile workforce applications for field technicians, and they started out in a data center. But as the whole world has moved to cloud, ClickSoft began transitioning to AWS. And as their AWS adoption grew, they needed greater visibility into their AWS environment and a better way to control their cloud costs. So ClickSoft started a proof of concept with Cloud Health. And during that POC, according to their cloud services program manager, and I'm quoting here, we were able to uncover hidden costs that allowed us to reach an ROI of 400% within only 2 weeks. And we haven't even scratched the surface of all the capabilities that the platform has to offer. And as ClickSoft has matured in their cloud cost management practice, they started using governance and automation tools to operationalize their practice. ClickSoft said that through Cloud Health's intuitive interface, we are able to easily view all AWS assets while putting policies and alerts in place that have been able to deliver immediate benefits beyond cost savings. All right, let's look at our Toast, which is our medium-sized business. They have about 2,000 employees. And this company was founded in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is where I'm broadcasting to you from right now. And they make point-of-sale software and hardware for restaurants. So if you've ever eaten out at a restaurant and been handed this nifty little device to pay your bill at the end, you might have been using Toast's products. Now, up until COVID-19 hit, Toast was investing heavily in the cloud, and they weren't really worrying too much about optimizing their cloud costs. They were growing really fast, and their main focus was to release more features and stabilize the platform as quickly as possible. But we all know how hard the restaurant industry took a hit during 2020, and at the start of the pandemic, Toast knew that they needed to make some rapid shifts if they were going to survive. So with Cloud Health, they were able to quickly pivot to optimizing for cost savings. And in the very first month of the COVID-19 lockdown, they were able to save $50,000 without negatively impacting their performance. So Toast was really able to stay afloat during this crisis thanks to some quick cost savings with Cloud Health. And finally, Experian, which is a huge international business that delivers consumer credit reports. Experian has had a pretty mature cloud management practice, and they already have a centralized team called the Cloud Business Office that holds meetings every quarter to analyze their cost savings and optimization opportunities. But Experian needed a robust tool that would match the complexity of their business. They've got lots of cloud stakeholders, and they all need different access and permissions, and they all need to focus on different areas of cloud management. So Experian began using Cloud Health, and at the first quarterly meeting after implementing Cloud Health, they were able to identify close to $90,000 in cost savings that was going to reoccur every month, equaling more than $1 million in annual savings. So in total, they've seen about $1.7 million in savings since implementing Cloud Health, and that number is ever growing. All right, so finally, I wanted to leave you with this 30-second testimonial from Discovery, another happy Cloud Health customer.
For us, when we started using Cloud Health, it was instantly visible that there are things we could save and change in the way we operate. We've seen already a 40% reduction in our cloud spend. We can have access to reports instantly. We can pre-build reports and run them whenever we feel like it. It will take me 4 to 6 hours dedicated time for somebody to do a single report. Now it happens within a second.
Well, that's it from me. Please feel free to visit us at cloudhealthtech.com for more information, or reach out to me at agregorio@vmware.com. And if you have a moment, we would love if you can take a second to fill out our survey. Thanks again for joining us today, and have a great day.